Hi, everyone. Welcome to another Babe with the Power sessions. I am so honored and excited to have a very special guest on today. Very powerful Babe with the Power. This is Assembly Member Cristina Garcia. Welcome.
Thank you.
Thank you so much for coming on. I'm so excited to share with the world all the amazing things you're doing. And there's something very exciting coming up. But first, I would love it if you could introduce yourself because I think you could probably do it better than I can.
Yeah, sure. I am Cristina Garcia. I represent the 58 Assembly District, which is 500,000 constituents in Southeast Los Angeles County, working class community, mostly immigrant or children of immigrants that cover my district. I'm also the chair of the Legislative Women's Caucus. We're bipartisan and bicameral. The biggest we've ever been. We're 39 legislators and 5 constitutional officers, but still far from parity. And so we're constantly working to make sure there's more base of power and that we have our fair share of the pie out there. And I've been in the office for 9 years, and I mostly work on issues that empower women around environmental justice and fighting corruption and pushing good government out there. And so, it's always a pleasure to be out there. I like to work on issues that might make people uncomfortable, but are really important discussions. And so a lot of the work that I've been leading oftentimes in the Capitol are things that no one wants to touch, and we are constantly trying to take advantage of the soapbox we've been gifted by voters to elevate important discussions.
I love it. Thank you so much for everything you're doing. And it is a difficult discussion a lot of times with female empowerment and women's health. So thank you for paving the way and continuing the conversation. So there is a really, really important bill coming up, legislation, and I would love for you to share with us what it is. And I'm trying to keep my calm right now, and I'm hoping it's going to get signed, but stays away. Go ahead.
Yeah, so I've been working on stealthing, and I started in 2017 when I read a story about a thesis out there by young women. And so the title started with the term rape adjacent, and I was like, what's rape adjacent? And so in that and learning about stealthing, and really, I think it's not something new that we were learning about. It just suddenly was given a name and put in a context that I think more people could say like, oh yeah, I've seen that, or that's happened to me. And so I decided to then introduce legislation at that point. And initially, we're trying to put it into the penal code. The bill that's on the governor's desk now, AB 453, makes stealthing illegal. We make clear that it's not just immoral, but that it's legal. And it puts it in our civil code, allowing victims to get restitution for medical expenses, for additional expenses and damages that like any other civil case here in California. But I think more than anything, elevates the discussion. So we could talk about this as you're doing education. It's clear that it's illegal out there, not just immoral. And so it would be the first in the nation. And we're hoping that it's the first of many bills to come. We hope to see a discussion and bills that could be done across the whole nation, both at a state level and federal level.
Yeah. So I'm going to stop you really quick because there's a lot of women watching, and we know the term stealthing. Stealthing, for anybody who doesn't know, and you can jump in and correct me, it's the non consensual removal of a condom during intercourse. I mean, that's just, for me, it's absolutely disgusting. It's rapey, it's stealthing. And the word stealthing kind of has an implication that it's cool. When you think of like James Bond, he's stealthy. So it's this term that made it kind of cool to take off a condom during sex when your partner doesn't know, sneakily. So there's a lot of issues that come of that. So this would make it illegal. So right now it's not illegal. What would happen right now if a victim found out that their partner did it on purpose and they removed a condom and went on with their day and they found out about it? What would happen?
It's been happening now, actually. In the work we've been doing over the last 4 years, there's been a lot of victims who have come forward and have tried to find legal recourse and get turned away by attorneys, get turned away by the legal system. There's been a lot of discussion that maybe it's already illegal, and so there's a lot of gray area out there. And so we wanted to make sure we eliminated the gray area and make it clear that while we made an agreement to have sex with a condom, that doesn't give you permission to find a sneaky way to remove the condom without permission. And that is illegal, that is breaking consent. To me,
Mhm.
breaking consent is rape out there. And so that's a discussion. And the initial bill that I introduced put it in that code. But at the end of the day, for me, it was about moving the discussion forward and making it clear it was legal and a good first step out there as we try to move forward in this discussion of what is consent out there. And so it's not just to me disgusting, but what's disgusting is that we have a community online of men who are encouraging each other to take off the condom without permission, giving each other tips of how to get away with it, telling each other they have a right or a responsibility to do this. It's happening not just to women, but it's happening in the LGBTQ plus community as
Mhm.
well out there. And there's a lot of risk associated with it, both with STIs that could be spread, but also mental trauma that we carry out there. And those are things that we carry for our lifetime. This is the reality. And so we are excited that we have been able to get this far in this discussion, and hoping that we will, have a bill signed in the near future.
Yeah, I'm excited as well. What I what got you to this point? I know you haven't always been an assemblywoman. It's a very honorable position. It's public service. Thank you again for doing it. But what led you to be passionate about this bill in particular?
So I've been in office for 9 years, and before that, I was a math teacher for 13 years, and I never expected to run for office, but I wanted to see a different type of leadership in my community, and I had an opportunity. And all my life, it's been about being fearless when an opportunity comes and taking advantage of it. And so I felt that I had a responsibility to run. When I looked around, I said, well, who else could run? I don't want to run. The reality is that the opportunity had been gifted to me. And so I had a responsibility to run for office. And so in my tenure, I've tried to do two things. One, to ensure that when there are those opportunities, that there's more than one woman who's ready to run
Yes.
out there, and mentoring and developing local talent has been really important to me. And then it's been about policy. And in the Capitol, I only work in 3 issue areas. And it's in part because when I started, I was all over the place and I
Hmm.
didn't like my job. I was really unhappy. And so I had to sit down and think about, if I'm going to do this and I'm going to be able to enjoy the good parts of my job and put up with the bad parts of my job, I need to work on policy that I'm passionate about. And so with that, it's women's issues. And for me, the discussion of consent is important. I'm in my 40s. Consent has been something that my friends and I talk about. We've been out there dating. We are always trying to figure out how to get into or stay in healthy relationships. And it's not automatic out there. We all have different experiences
Yeah.
out there. And, it's about expanding discussions. I think a lot of what I try to do in the Capitol is, how do we expand the discussion, and how do we not stay in the narrow pathways that have been created for us constantly. And so it's, I can't fully explain why consent is so important to me, but I guess the idea of doing what's right is important to me. The idea of justice is important to me. The idea of being preventive and having education and conversations is important to me. And so this kind of just became a natural place for me to I guess, land in, to be able to use my soapbox in a way that I have, that I could be proud of and I'm passionate about.
I'm with you on all those passions. Everything you're saying is phenomenal. I agree with you. And one of the things you said in there was the idea of consent. I just tried thinking about what the world would look like if we didn't have a voice and weren't able to have consent. And a lot of this is conversation and education. And one of the reasons why I'm one of the owners of Lovability and I work in sexual health is because I want to continue that conversation. And it's very important. And we also want to do it in a fun way. So, if like closing, is there anything for anybody listening that they can do to help carry on this movement and conversation? Do you have any advice?
Yeah, I mean, I think first and foremost, we have to allow ourselves to have conversations, even if they are uncomfortable. And that might be conversations amongst your friends, your acquaintances, your family members, and more importantly, with the person you're choosing to engage with in a relationship, whether it's a one night stand or a multi-year relationship. I think these conversations need to be had. I think a lot of times assumptions are made around consent, and a lot of folks maybe are not purposefully trying to break that consent, and we could avoid some of these victim cases. Maybe not all, but I think we could avoid a lot of them by having honest conversations. And I always like, if we're close enough to engage in sex,
Mhm.
we're close enough to have a discussion about what are my boundaries out there, right? And we shouldn't be ashamed of that. So I hope that at a minimum, those conversations are going to continue happening. I hope that we push other legislators across the country, if you're in a different state, to pass legislation like this, that we're also passing legislation like this at the federal level. We don't have to do it one state at a time. We could also do federal legislation as well out there. And so that's another way it could be helpful to continue the discussion, to continue to move forward in this space out there. And then I think this is just one space and one item within consent. There's so much more. I do a lot of other bills. I have a bill on spousal rape right now, and in California, spousal rape is treated differently and more leniently than rape, than all other types of rape. And I always tell folks, are you married? Should not be the first question a victim is asked.
Wait,
And so
wait. It's not the same as rape. So if rape
no,
is
not
rape,
California.
right?
There's 9 states where we differentiate, and it's a lesser standard in California. And so we are trying to make it clear that rape is rape, and a marriage license doesn't give you property ownership over my body suddenly. But it's an example of the fact that the discussion around consent is much broader than what we have right now. And we need to be having those discussions on a regular basis. And so I would say that we shouldn't limit ourselves to just a discussion around stealthing. At the end of the day, it's about ownership of our bodies and our health, and respecting on the other side. If I'm allowing you to come into this relationship in any capacity, respecting those boundaries that we set for ourselves. And so there's a lot more to it than just stealthing or spousal rape. And so the best way you could help is by having these conversations out there. I think for a lot of victims who feel like you're the only one, or you're crazy, ashamed to talk about this, right? And so, and all those things are things that then perpetuate the system to continue. And so having those discussions is important, and it can't just be by victims. I think it's really hard when we're asking victims to come forward and share their stories. It's traumatizing to relive those stories, and that's the only way that we're going to make change out there. And so I think we owe it to them to have these discussions, and not wait for a victim to come and bring it to our attention.
Yeah, and vote. And you can also run for even your local level offices. So I'm one of those. I'm running for district rep here in Stamford, Connecticut for the same reasons. I was presented the opportunity and I wanted to see change. So here I am. So you guys can do this. We could all do it together. So thank you.
Thank you, and
else?
congratulations on having the courage to run, and for yourself or anyone else who's considering running. A couple of pieces of unsolicited advice: just stay true to yourself. I think voters really, do reward honesty, and do reward you taking risks that are for a righteous cause. Ask for help. This is a team sport, and we don't do it alone. And whatever your qualifications you have, it's enough. There's no perfect checklist.
Yes.
Having the passion and the courage to run is all it really takes. And so, just that's enough. I think as women, a lot of times we think there's this perfect checklist that we need to have, or else we're not ready to run. And passion, opportunity, and just the drive to run is enough. If you ask a guy, they're not going to wait for a perfect checklist. They're going to say, like, yeah, I'm a leader, I could do this. And we're leaders too. And so it's important that we put ourselves out there. We're going to win some, we're going to lose some. I think when you lose some, you have to pick yourself up and figure out how you're going to try again. And you never do anything to lose, but that happens. And so I always tell folks, be prepared for that. At the end, I'm like, don't think about it right now. Do everything you can to make sure you win. But if you do, you still have a responsibility to stay engaged, because there's a lot of voters who still supported your ideas, and they are expecting that you're going to keep fighting for them.
So, I mean, now that you're giving great advice, so I have been knocking on doors and canvassing. So when people do say, here's an issue that I have right now, I take notes, I put it in my Google Drive with their email, and I should be following up with everybody. And if anything happens on those issues, how do you organize getting back to all the constituents? I find that to be a challenge.
So the reality, I have a team of folks, and the reality is that I tell folks, I might not be able to fix it for you. What I'm going to do is try to find your bridge so that you could be the advocate. So I can help you figure out what's the pathway that forward so that you could be the change agent that you need on this one issue. And sometimes I can get it done for you. But I think you have to be honest with folks. And I think the other fact right now is that you're running for office, and your main thing is like, I need to talk to as many voters and get the word out. And so I might not be able to get to this issue right now. It's something that's going to have to wait, and we're going to have to follow up when I get elected, right? And so I think you need to be honest with folks along the way that I'm going to add this to a list and hope to get to it, and we'll follow up. And if you don't hear from me, follow up with me if you do see me win, to make sure it gets done. But I just, I think the reality is that you can't do it all, and don't expect to do it all. Delegate where you can, and find other folks to do the work with you.
Well, you're an inspiration. Thank you so much for paving the way in everything you're doing. And I know we're going to continue this fight together. So thank you so much. And feel free to, I'm going to put down below everybody ways to get in touch with you, your links on social media, and the bill, which I know we're going to be optimistic. By the time this is posted, it will be signed. If not, we're going to pick ourselves up and
And
figure
try
it out.
again.
Thank you so much for coming on. I really appreciate you.
Thank you. Have a great day.
You too.